Everybody.
Hello
Hello.
there. Hello, hello.
Hello.
Can you hear me, Sister Omi?
I can.
Okay. Okay. I'm good. I'll be listening. I'm out of town still.
No problem.
Hope everybody's okay.
Yes, ma'am. Welcome to the final capacity building session of the Black Religious Roundtable on HIV. I hope this has been an informative experience so far. And I hope that you all are ready to get going with implementation, because that is where we are going next. Tonight, we're going to be talking about program sustainability and specifically financial stability or resource development. And I'm going to focus that conversation on resource development, specifically on grant writing. And I will tell you why, although I don't think that that is the only conversation that we can have on resource development. But before we start, I'm going to turn it over to Reverend Bean. Would we like to get someone to pray us in?
Can you hear me?
I can.
Oh, good. We can absolutely do that. Is there anyone that is online that is with us now that would like to lead us in prayer? Do we have any volunteers? No? Well, as usual, I don't mind praying at all. So if we all can find our position and place that is most comfortable to us as we go to God in prayer. God, we thank you for yet another day, an opportunity to do your work, to do your will, to change the world. God, we don't take the Black Religious Roundtable in vain. We know that we're here to do a good work. We know that we are here to arrest that pandemic. We are here to save lives. We are here to enlighten people and embolden lives. So God, as we discuss what is best for this program, be present in our hearts and minds. May the words that are spoken rest, rule, and abide. Enhance our thinking, enhance our programs, enhance our living, and enhance the lives of the people we're trying to touch. We pray all of these things in all of your names. Let everybody say amen and ashe.
Amen. Ashe.
Amen and ashe.
All right. So before we dive in to tonight's topic, two announcements I want to make. One is that earlier today I sent a link. Well, maybe earlier just yesterday, or maybe it was Friday. I sent a link to our Google Classroom to your email. If you didn't get that link or you didn't see it, it's okay, because then today, after William sent the update reminder for this meeting, I followed up with the link for the Google Classroom as well. So you should have that link in your email, and that link will take you to the Google Classroom that is arranged by capacity building training dates, or session numbers 1 through 6. And tonight, after tonight's session, then we'll upload the video straight into there, and then all of the sessions will be available for you. So if you needed to go back and look for it, or you need to go back and revisit any session, or if your team was present, of course, because everybody's team was present for every session, but you might not have been present for a specific session, and you want to go back and look at that session, it is there. It is also there with the handouts by session. The other thing that is there is a video library that includes 3 videos that can be resources for your projects that were recorded, I believe, last year. Reverend Bean worked with a few of our Interfaith Advisory Board members on specific topics, some of the topics which we covered as a part of capacity building, but they can really give more insight, so they can be very helpful. So I would recommend everyone looking at them in your time, and in time that you have. So tonight is the last session. We are going to be talking specifically about program sustainability and resource development, particularly with a community focused lens. Sustainability planning is something that people, when they talk about it, they tend to only really be thinking about money. And I'm gonna just keep it 100. Money is really important, right? To all areas of sustainability, but it's not the only thing. So we're going to talk about program sustainability and how we would like you to think about program sustainability from a holistic space. And then we're going to talk about one of the aspects of program sustainability, which is actually financial stability, which is and resource development. And my focus in that conversation is going to be grant writing, only because so many organizations, nonprofit organizations, do focus on it. We are going to cover a couple of other places how, you can also focus on financial stability or, looking to stabilize the finances of your project. But that's our topic for tonight. And then we're going to end tonight's discussion with reviewing your preparation and how you should be preparing for your Black Religious Roundtable presentations, which are coming up. So always, I'm going to start with your objectives, always starting with the why. Why are we here tonight? What are we going to do? So I would like you all to leave here with an understanding of program sustainability and the importance for community projects. I'd like you to understand the basics of grant writing. I cannot teach you how to be a whole grant writer, but I can give you the basics on how to strengthen your proposals and how to make better proposals. Since I have read I've read all of your proposals, then I can say with confidence that everybody can strengthen their proposal writing just a little bit. I'm going to give some tidbits on what that could look like. And then also, we're going to be preparing next week. We don't have any meeting next week. My advice to everybody is meet with your team. You already have been meeting at 6 o'clock on Tuesdays. I would suggest if you can find any other time to meet, that you meet at 6 o'clock on Tuesday on next week so that you can talk about your presentation, make sure you outline your presentation. And you probably might need to meet outside of that as well, because you do have your logic model and your work plan that should also be turned in. On the Google Classroom, the last thing that I just uploaded was the schedule for your presentations. So I don't want to give it here tonight because I want everyone to log onto the classroom. So if for any reason you can't get into the classroom, let me know and I will make sure you have the link so that you can get in. If I have your email wrong or something, then we will correct that immediately, because I would like to see everybody logged into the classroom. All right, let's talk about project sustainability. So project sustainability really refers to the plan of sustaining the implementation or the impacts of your program long-term. So remember when we talked about goals, we talked about long-term being more like, after 5 years or so, 3 years, 5 years. So really looking at the long-term impact of your program. How is your program going to change? And answering the question, the basic question is, will your program still be around? Will your organization still be around? After this project is over, can we still rely on the work that you've done to impact the people that you've been impacting? A lot of times what people are worried about is that, you give grants to organizations and they come in and they do a project and the project was phenomenal. The project was great. It helped out a certain amount of people for a length of time. And then the money dries up and then the program goes away, and the people that suffer are the community, that very community that you were trying to serve, right? So really thinking about how can your program sustain, even if the project itself doesn't have any more operating funds? What are the long-lasting impacts of that program, and how will that community be able to utilize the work that you've put forward in this project? So I think I was saying earlier that a lot of requests for proposals or RFPs, they use the term sustainability, and really when they ask you that sustainability question, what they're asking you is, does your organization have the capacity to sustain the program past the funding, right? Do you have enough money is really how a lot of people look at this. Or do you have plans for how you're going to get more money to be able to sustain the project, which is what most times organizations are looking at, right? How much money does it cost for me to sustain this project, and will I have enough after this grant resource dries up? But program sustainability is actually much more complex than that. It goes way past financial resource development. Although, again, I'm not gonna lie, resource development and finances are absolutely important when we're talking about project sustainability. So you usually have what's called a sustainability plan, right? So if you're familiar with grant writing or you're familiar with community programs, then your funder might want you to have a sustainability plan. And the sustainability plan just basically outlines, it offers insight to the funder or to the donor or to whoever you're speaking about, your community partners, on the various aspects that might impact the organization's ability to be able to maintain, and not just maintain, but adapt the program, right? For future use in some kind of way, past that particular length of time. So in our case, right, we're looking at program sustainability past a 9-month period, right? But most projects, you might have 12 months, you might have 3 years, you might have 5 years. So sustainability plans can actually be pretty lengthy and pretty well thought out, but there's some areas that should always be covered in sustainability planning. And really the recommendation is to think about sustainability at the onset of the project and not as the project is sundowning, right? A lot of times, sometimes we might be scrambling if we don't have sustainability plans as an organization, because we didn't, we thought that the money wasn't going to dry up and it would be here forever. And if you work in community planning, then you know that that is just not the case. Grants come and grants go. Finances change, communities change, environments change, organizations change, human resources change, a bunch of things. You're constantly dealing with adaptability and constantly adapting to whatever's changing around you. But these 3 areas, there's 3 basic areas that your a sustainability plan should cover, or when you're talking about program sustainability or project sustainability, you want to look at community sustainability, financial sustainability, and organizational sustainability. Those are the basic areas of sustainability when we're talking about from a community standpoint. And I'm going to go over all 3 and give you some examples of how to incorporate this aspect of sustainability into your project. You may not be doing this right now, but it's something for you to think about it. And we do want you to address sustainability in your presentation, right? So you don't have to give us a whole sustainability plan, because we don't expect you to have a full plan, but we want to know that you've thought about it and that you've given some thought to these different areas. So community sustainability really addresses the issue of how well the project is rooted in the actual community that you're serving, right? So in this case, the community that you're serving is the congregations or the people that are a part of your religious institutions or that you'll be serving. That is the community. Community support is critical to sustainability, right? Because if you are not serving anybody, then there's no project, right? If your community doesn't buy into what you're doing, if they don't think that it's pertinent, if they don't care, then who are you serving and why? So really making sure that you have community buy-in, and that not only buy-in, but community support throughout the entire project, right? A good way to ensure that you're thinking about community sustainability from the onset of the project is to involve them at the beginning, not at the end, not, after you've already written everything that you're supposed to do, but you really want to get some insight from the community that you're serving to make sure that you're serving them in the way that they need to be served. And in some instances, sometimes you have organizations that can say, well, I am the community that I serve, and that works, right? So when you are the community that you serve, that does work. So of course you have some insight into your community, but as a person who works in community programming and serves in a bunch of different capacities, it's always helpful to get other opinions, and get other insight from people that are going to be participating in your project and, utilizing the work that you do even past the project itself. So examples of ways that you can do that: a community advisory board that actually has community members on it, right? Because sometimes we have cabs that are full of people with, PhDs and all kind of, accolades, and those people may belong to the program. So that works also. But if not, right, you really want to make sure. So if you are serving youth and you don't have any youth on your cab, then what is the point, right? If you are serving people that are living with HIV and no one living with HIV is a part of your community advisory board, then what is the point, right? So sometimes we miss an opportunity to really serve the community by not making sure that we have those people present. Other ways, formative interviews, right? Formative meaning before, right? So before you form the entire project, you are getting input by interviewing people that are part of that population. Needs and assessments. I said needs and asset assessments, right? So a lot of times you might hear needs assessment, needs assessment, needs assessment, needs assessment, and needs assessments are really important. Assets assessments are equally as important. So when you do a needs assessment, you might want to just think about also looking into what the community already has, right? What assets are already a part of that community, so that you're not coming in kind of thinking that you know what the needs are and asking questions, but really kind of looking at what's present, what's already here, and how can you partner or utilize what's already a part of that community. Other ways, toolkits or implementation resources that are going to be around past the implementation period, right? That are going to be left with the community. So maybe you're doing a training and you have toolkits that are part of that training, and you leave those toolkits with members of the community, so that even if you're not in that community anymore, those toolkits still live on, and they can be utilized by the community workers or the people that might be carrying on the program even after the funding is done. Next, let's talk about organizational sustainability. Again, if the organization is not there, then you can bet the program won't be there, right? Unless the program is picked up by another organization, right? So you do really want to look at sustaining your organization, right? That's really looking at the capacity of the organization to be able to thrive, right? So not just surviving on, whatever it's given, but really, really, really thriving. Again, that's why I said that you can't talk about sustainability without talking about money. But sometimes there's just such a large focus on it that I really want everyone to broaden their horizons and broaden their thought processes around sustainability. But there's a lot of different ways in which an organization can really look at how they generate money, how they take care of their staff, right? The resources that they have, what that the section in your logic model that deals with inputs, right? That is the place where your organizational sustainability can also be addressed, right? The partnerships you have really can look to as sustainability. In-kind support that you have, in-kind meaning that there's not a dollar amount attached to it necessarily, but you might be able to utilize space. I just called somebody for this very project. I called a partner. I had to call a partner today. I'm going to give you that story in a minute. I had to call a partner today to be like, hey, I need some in-kind help because we need a space for, X, Y, and Z. And they were able to, help us, right? And that partnership is about sustainability, right? Because even after they're looking past this funding and really looking into how can this partnership grow? How can this partnership help ITC? How can this partnership help the Black Religious Roundtable, right? So your partners are definitely an important part of your organizational sustainability. So examples, staff development retreats that build the capacity of the organization's human resources, internal and external communication plans that strengthen the organization's visibility, right? And also succession plans, right? Because this happens to a lot of, you may know or you may not know, I work with a lot of nonprofit organizations, and I work with a lot of nonprofit organizations that are run by people that look like us. And a lot of times we don't have succession plans. So succession plans are plans, what's in place for after the founding director, the executive director, when they leave the organization, right? Usually what happens is that when that executive director leaves, the organization falls because that organization was tied to that person, as opposed to there being a plan for for transmuting and changing leadership for the organization. So these are just examples that a funder or a donor or a partner or someone who's really wanting to talk about sustainability of your project, these are some of the things that they want to talk about. And last but not least, the one that I think everybody's probably most familiar with is financial sustainability, right? So the organization can't survive without money. The program can't survive without money. You need money to pay people because we can't take love and intention to the grocery store. They're not taking it. They haven't been taking it ever. So you have people that work for your project. You have to pay them. You have people that are coming to your project. They probably might want incentives. I was just talking to one of the organizations and they were talking about how they're going to incentivize people to take the survey, right? All those things take money. HIV testing takes money. Education and running off papers, it takes money. It all takes money. And so really being able to look at what opportunities your organization has for building its resources, including financial resources, right? And you basically have two options, right? You could talk about money all day, but there's two types of money that's coming into an organization. There's external resources and internal resources. So external resources are usually coming from outside the organization, and it's not raised by like project activities. So like you might have grants, which come in different forms, right? Government funding, that's another form of a grant, or donations, right? You might actually get like donations from people or outside donors to be able to write a check to fund a particular project, or that money might go into the general fund, fund any operating costs. Or internal sources. And this is a thing, I think, a place where organizations tend to lack because we're so focused on the outside resources that we do not focus on the possibility of generating income within the organization, right? So that could be business ventures, it could be membership fees, or any other kind of income generating activities. So for instance, here's some examples. A planned individual giving campaign, right? You have people that run massive resource development campaigns, capital campaigns, where they're getting donors, individual people to write checks. Peer-to-peer social media giving campaigns, right? That's kind of the new thing that popped up. It popped up a few years ago, but got really, really, really sexy during COVID, right? Because nobody was really having in-person gatherings or galas, right? There was all this stuff that was happening on social media, where you get people that are associated with your organization to engage their peers, right? I think Facebook has something where it's like you can give money to an organization for my birthday, right? That's an example of a peer-to-peer social media giving campaign. Planned grant writing, and I say planned because grant writing is a skill and anybody can learn it. But really planning out your grants and having a plan for your grant writing and how grants come in and go out is really, really key. Starting an Amazon store for your organization. I've seen a couple of organizations do this and do really, really well. Like Amazon is popping. And there's an investment that the organization pays, but then they're able to generate money through selling the things that people are already buying on Amazon. Or having a consulting arm of the organization that makes money selling a curriculum that maybe you've developed, or selling and training that particular curriculum, right? All of those are ideas of monetary generating activities that you can do to be able to stabilize your finances. All right, so this is the last slide, I think, on project sustainability. And these are the areas. So if you're ever asked to write a sustainability plan, or when you are asked to talk about sustainability, then I think you should talk about sustainability in those three areas, right? Community sustainability, financial sustainability, organizational sustainability. These are all areas of those three, right, that you can break down further. Having a coherent mission, a theory of change, right? Like how does your organization actually move people from one thing to the other? Like really having that understood and mapped out. And then also even knowing how like how the changing environment may impact your mission or your theory of change over time. Having strong monitoring and evaluation data collection tools, and then sharing those results, right? So some of you are doing you're doing projects that are novel, and so you're collecting data for the first time that may have never been collected with your particular population. Sharing those results with others is really, really key, right? And Dr. Sarita, I'm not sure she's here, but she might be able to talk to us eventually about, publishing white papers, and, we might be able to publish some of those things through ITC, or even through Georgia State, I think Dr. Sarita was saying. So there'll be opportunities for us to really talk about the impact that this project is having. I was talking to someone from the Satcher Institute on leadership, on public health leadership, that's a part of Morehouse School of Medicine today. And they were saying like how really great this was that we were choosing to take on organizations where this is not their norm, right? They're not normally talking about HIV. They're not normally talking about inclusion of LGBTQI within these populations, and that some of this is very novel. So us being able to document this strongly and then publishing the results and sharing the results, those results live on forever, right? They live online, they live in the archives. So that's sustainability, right? That's a part of the program sustainability. Adaptability of the approach, right? So the approach that you use today may not be the approach that you use 6 months from now, can probably absolutely not be the approach that you're going to use 9 years from now, right? So just being able to adapt your approach to whatever is going on within your environment and within your community, right? That's again, going back to really knowing your community. That's important to be able to make sure that your project lives and that your project is sustained because you are moving with the time. Staff training, I already talked about that, in project management, fundraising, you're really building the resources of your staff. When you invest in your staff, when you invest in the people that are actually doing the work, your project lives on. Having multiple sources of funding, absolutely necessary. If you are counting on one grant to sustain a program, you are planning on it to fail, right? Or you're planning on it to be finished when that resource is finished. So really looking at multiple sources of funding, looking at multiple different types of grants, right? There's different types of grants. We'll kind of talk about some of that tonight. And making sure that you diversify how money is coming to your organization and to your project is important. Again, organizational stability, we already talked about that. Integration into existing systems and political support. So, and, a lot of times as organizations, as nonprofits, we can't get so political. But we are talking about, social justice. And so being able to know, again, what's happening in the environment, what is happening, at the state level, at the federal level that may be impacting or could be impacting your project is necessary. And then how do you have to adapt with the times so that your program sustains? And last but not least, the thing I talked about first, community support is absolutely essential for sustainability, because if you have no community to serve, then you have no project. So making sure that you really invest in ensuring that your community buys into what you're doing from the beginning, right? Like nobody wants to be invited to the party after after everything is already planned. No one, you don't want to, that's not when you want to come to the table. You want to come to the table when, when plans are being made, that way their ideas can be taken into consideration. I'm wondering if I should pause here to look at questions. I don't know. Okay, I see someone said I have not received any documentation from any of the weeks, with the exception of the PowerPoint. We'll look into your email. So maybe we have your email wrong. I see it here. So I'll recheck your email and make sure that you have everything. Okay. All right, so we're gonna take a bit of a deeper dive into financial stability by taking a deeper dive into grant writing. And the reason I want to focus on grant writing is I think that a lot of organizations spend a lot of time and a lot of resources on grant writing. And I do believe that a lot of organizations, I actually teach grant writing for a living. That's a part of our consulting arm. And what I find is that a lot of organizations they grant write backwards. They're not doing it right. So they expend a lot of time and a lot of energy writing grants that they shouldn't write, and then not winning grants, right? And so they get really frustrated. All the other stuff that I was talking about, like peer-to-peer campaigns, even the Amazon store, right? Selling your curriculums, like there are multiple ways to make money. And so the one thing I want to say about that is do not rely just on grants to keep your organization and your programs going. It's really not the right thing to do. The reason why is because, organizations or funders, they like to get on moving trains, right? So if you can show that you already have, like, I have this many donors that are already giving me money, right? And I take this money and I use this for this program. So some of you are associated with churches, which is great because I'm sure maybe some of your churches take in donations every month, and maybe some of those donations are utilized to run programming, which is awesome, right? But if that's not the case, and you're not taking in donations on a regular basis, like really being able to look at how you fund your programs and you sustain your programs is important. Grant writing can be awesome. It can be time consuming, but if you do it just a little differently, if you make some tweaks in some places, right, then, your grant writing efforts can be really, really, you can increase your grant writing, decrease the time you spend, but increase the number of grants that you actually win. So I'm going to give I said a deeper dive, but, as deep as I can get, in a 30-minute time period. But I'm going to go over a few things kind of briefly. I'm going to go over the types of grants that there are. And then I'm going to go over the basic necessities of a proposal. The reason that I'm going over this is because for some of you that, I'm going to say the vast majority, right? We got of the grants that we got, the information that we received, it was kind of shown that, this may be an area that may be lacking, and just knowing what the basic parts of the proposal are and how to prepare them could be really helpful. So here are the different types of grants. There's 3 different types. You have government grants, you have private foundation grants, and then you have corporate grants or corporate sponsorships. And so government grants are given by the federal government, the state government, or the local government institutions. Examples of that might be National Institute of Health, Center for Disease Control, DeKalb County Parks and Recreation, City of Atlanta, right? They have a number of grants in a number of areas. Looking at who gives what when and kind of keeping up with that. And then we do something called a grant grid, where we kind of look at, what grant is coming out on what day, who's going to write it, and, what are the basic necessities of what are the basic needs of that particular RFP. I'm going to give you a tidbit when we get into the proposal piece that I think might be really, really helpful to everyone as they write. Private foundation grants. These are given by like larger organizations, usually maybe funded by like an endowment or maybe like an organization, like a company that may have a specific corporate responsibility arm, maybe sometimes, like Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Ford Foundation, Ben and Jerry's Foundation. These are all private foundations. The thing about private foundations that's great, like say Ford Foundation now, like that's why visibility is so important, and really making sure that you get the word out about what you're doing. Because when you get to the point where you're doing really great work, the private foundations will find you, right? And that's really a great place to be when you're working in the nonprofit world, right? When someone's calling you and they're like, hey, I saw the wonderful work that you're doing and we want to fund you, right? Like, so I have a few clients that have gotten to this space right now. They're like, wow, this is what you were talking about. I was like, yeah, it's a whole different feeling, to have them contact you than you to answer a particular RFP. And then lastly, this is the part about corporate responsibility. You have a lot of corporations or large companies that will give a particular amount of money away each year, right? Money that from their revenue that goes straight back into the community. So you have Sprint Wireless, Walmart, Kroger. We're funded by Gilead Sciences. Gilead Sciences is a corporate sponsor, right? Because Gilead is a corporation, they're a pharmaceutical company, and they make goo gobs of money each year, and each year they put a particular amount aside to be able to put back into the community in which they sell their pharmaceuticals, right? So that's called corporate responsibility. These are 3 different types of grants, and we recommend, if you are grant writing, that you write them all, right? Don't just put one, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Like, try different grants require different things, right? So corporate grants require something different than private grants, require something different than government grants, right? But the basic needs of a grant proposal kind of all look the same, and that's what I'm going to give you now. And again, don't worry, you'll have access to this presentation, but I do think that this part of it will be helpful for you all. So it might be called something different sometimes, so don't get hung up on the words, but it's basically the same information all of the time in some way, shape, or form. You might have some organizations that are, they might want a little bit more information on this part or that part, but these are the basic parts of your grant application. One of the things that we teach, right, and this is something that helps with financial sustainability, right, because unless you have a grant writer on staff, right, which most small organizations do not have a grant writer on staff. Most times, at best, you might have a contractor that you can work with for a period of time, right, where you've hired them for a period of time. And a lot of times you can't, you might not be able to afford that because those people aren't always so cheap. So having this type of proposal already written for your organization saves you time, saves you money, saves you resources, saves you from scouring back and forth trying to get a whole bunch of information when you find out about a particular grant 2 weeks before it's due, which happens to all of us, right? It happens all the time. You found this great opportunity, and this opportunity it's due in a week and a half. But if you already have this proposal written, it saves your life. You may have to make some tweaks. You may have to do some things to get the request for proposal, the way they are asking for it, but your basic grant will be completed. And so if you're going to be doing grant writing, then my advice, and if you're really looking at sustaining, part of you should be wanting to sustain your project through grants. I'm sure most people are going to be, that's a thing that you want to do, clearly, because you applied for this grant and you received it, right? So if you're looking at applying for grants in the future, then you should take that proposal that you wrote for us and start to break it down into these 8 parts and fill in the gaps, because I can say, because I've read all of your proposals, just about all of you will have some gaps, right? Well, you'll need to strengthen these different parts. But having this information already on tap, it's really, really helpful. So you have the abstract, you have the organizational profile, the background and understanding, the program approach, the goals and objectives, the evaluation, project management, and then the budget and narrative. Some of this great information is going to come from that thing that I already made you do, which is your logic model. And some people are like, why did I have to do that funky piece of paper? And why do I have to turn it in? But it's actually really, really helpful in you planning out. I see Lisa smiling. I saw your smile, Lisa, because she knows I'm right. That logic model is life-saving. It's super, super helpful. And if you feel like you do want to go further with your grant writing, it's going to really be a very important document in your entire, of all of the documents that you have for your program development. So let's take each one by one. I can't get to my time. Somebody give me a time check. I can't see it on my screen right now.
6:42.
Okay. Okay, so organizational profile. Your organizational profile is going to give a basic history of your organization. It should have your mission statement. It should have your target population. It should have your program overview. And what I mean by program overview, I mean that you probably have other projects, other programs that are a part of your organization, right? You want to be able to tell the funder you know, what you do and how you do it and why you do it. Not just the project that they're trying to fund, but overall. And then you also want to be able to give relevant organizational experience to that particular project. So that may look like a table that gives like relevant experience towards that particular, you know, project or relevant experience that you have as an organization. Again, if you keep this document I'm talking about like as the general boilerplate language for your organization, you can pull from it and add to it as you need to, depending on what the RFP is asking you for. But again, you won't be starting from scratch every single time you get a new RFP. So this gives relevant organizational experience to the particular project. And again, keep this, you want to keep it all for this document that I'm suggesting, right? I'm not talking about a particular RFP, but I'm talking about what we call boilerplate language in a boilerplate grant so that your organization can be in a position to write grants quicker. Next is the background and understanding section. It answers the question, why is this organization or program even important? Why should anybody care, right? The most important part of this this aspect of your grant proposal is that it has to be supported by data and references. You want to state facts here and not give a bunch of opinions, right? The other part, something else that I like to add in this section is best practices. And best practices are things that other organizations or other people have already utilized with your population that have worked, right? And what you can do in this section is to kind of show like you're knowledgeable about what's out there already, and you see where the gaps are. So you can talk about how your organization is filling those gaps. Also, like, so for those of you that are doing needs assessments and things like that, so because again, some of you are entering into this space where you can do a literature review and maybe nothing's coming up on the Yoruba population, you know, the Yoruba faith and HIV. Maybe you're not getting anything there because nobody's done that work yet, right? There's not a whole lot. Someone else is doing work where they're looking at spirituality and trans women and having conversations between, you know, trans women and cisgender women and making space, like spiritual space for those types of conversations. A lot of that kind of in a rural space, right? That work hasn't really been done yet. So you want to make sure that you are, what you can do, even though you may not have a lot of data for your specific population, is you can give data that currently exists and you can talk about the type of data that you're going to be collecting, right? That will really influence where how this particular population is dealt with in the future, right? Funders want to get on, you know, they like innovative ideas. So if you're doing something that's innovative, you want to be able to talk about it. And this would be the space to show that it hasn't really been done before. If you feel like it hasn't been done before, but it's important that you do your research, right? Look at the literature, look at what currently exists, look at the data, look at national data, look at local data, right? Just go from, I usually go from national down to, you know, down to regional if I'm talking about the South, right down to local data in Atlanta to again show that I have knowledge about what I'm talking about and I'm not just pulling this out the side of my, you know, out the side of my skirt. I actually have done my research and have put together a plan that will address the population I want to serve. Program approach. It gives a specific roadmap for your program. It also gives the theory or the evidence-based elements of your program. We always suggest that you use evidence-based approaches whenever possible, right? Again, if you're creating something that's novel, you want to show what it's based on, and you want to talk about why you're creating something, right? So in order to do that, you have to talk about what currently exists. This specific roadmap I'm talking about also is found in your logic model. This is why you want to plan it out from the beginning, because you'd really be writing from that, right? From your your goals straight back to this program approach deals with your activities section pretty much, where you would be really showing the activities that you're doing, why you're doing them, how you're doing them. If there's any theories that you're using, then you want to tie those theories, the constructs of those theories to the specific activities that you're doing. Goals and objectives, again, taken straight from your logic model, right? You want to look at the specific goals, which are those overall things that you plan to achieve. Your outcome objectives, right, which should be SMART. They should be specific and measurable and attainable, realistic and time sensitive, right? And then those outputs that we were speaking about, where like how many activities are you going to do? How many sessions are you going to do? How many people are you going to serve, right? This really gives the measures of your proposal. It's very, very critical and important to your evaluation plan. I feel like I'm missing something. And then wait, hold on. I think I'm missing something.
Omi, are you able to take we have a few questions in the chat. Are you
Okay.
able to address some of those?
I
now?
can.
Oh, okay. We have from RIM Fellowship UCC, she asks, will the grants that we pre-submitted be returned with suggestions? And I'm guessing
What'd you say?
I'm guessing what they're asking is when you submit for a grant at the various institutions, when they receive it, if it's something that they observe that they can better the grant, will they return the proposal back to you with suggestions on how to improve that proposal?
That's not what I heard. I heard they were asking, will we be turning back the grant that they turned into us with suggestions?
Oh, oh,
And in either event, I could answer both of them.
Oh,
if
okay.
that's
Please do.
helpful. So no, we hadn't planned on returning back those grant proposals. That wasn't the plan. What we did was we met with each person, with each organization, to give feedback on the proposal. The feedback that we were giving was specifically on the proposal that you wrote. Which is why we're having so many, we're making the logic model a part of the presentations. We're making the work plan a part of the presentations, right? And we went over different aspects of your grant, your application with you in order to give you feedback. In terms of what William said, anytime you submit a grant, and I can't say anytime because everybody's different, but most times when you submit a grant, if you're submitting grant applications and you don't get them, then my recommendation to anybody would be to ask for your scorecards if they will give them to you. A lot of places will. Federal grants absolutely will, right? They absolutely will be happy to show you the scorecards. But even private foundations, you will probably have to call and ask for the program manager and ask to see them. But it is a great way to see how you're faring and see how people are scoring you, to see if you're being clear, when you write your different applications.
Okay. Another question is how do you explain that the data doesn't exist?
That's a good one. So what you need to do is really thoroughly show what does exist, right? So I would do a real lit review showing on what you found and then discussing where the gaps are and how you cannot necessarily relate this directly to your population. Or maybe some of it you can relate to your population, or maybe you're taking it a step further, right? But you absolutely have to do your homework to be able to do that, because what you don't want to happen is the person in the room that actually did the research be, on the grant committee, because that could happen, right? And they'd be like, well, they just didn't look because I wrote this, that, and that, So you really want to do your research and look at what currently exists, accurately talk about what exists, and then discuss how you're going to take that a step further, by including this particular population.
Yes, and Tori also made an observation saying you actually say that in your project, if there's a problem gathering the data, there is generally a lack of sufficient data around the LGBTQ plus people. Okay. Okay, so, and with the initial question from Rim Fellowship, yes, I did meet with you one-on-one. You mentioned that each grant had gaps. I was just inquiring about that specifically, so you did answer that question. And
Okay.
one more question before you carry on. Is it common practice for program directors to share scorecards when requested?
Is that that's a question?
Yeah, is it common practice for program directors to share scorecards when requested?
It's common practice. Well, you can ask for them. So I don't know if it's common practice or not, but it's common in my practice. Because that's kind of how we got better, right? So especially for like organizations that, like I said, when you're not winning and you've been writing grants for a while and you keep getting denial letter after denial letter, you need to see what you're up against. You need to see how you're scoring. And so there have been times when we've asked for them and they've said no. I mean, that's the worst they could say is no. But then plenty of times where they've been like, sure, hold on, let me grab that for you. And they'll share them. They're not going to share like, what they'll give you is basically the score sheets, which kind of gives you like an overall, strengths and weaknesses usually. And then, it might have comments that the reader made. But yeah, that is, it definitely happens. And we definitely suggest it for people that are losing on a regular basis. They're expending resources and just not receiving any money in.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. So there's a couple of more sections. I think there's 3. There's the evaluation section, right? Which is very important. And it looks like how do you know that your program actually worked, right? So looking at the objectives that you developed, looking at the data that you collected, right? And kind of talking about what your plan is for ensuring that your project worked, both process evaluation and outcome evaluation. And then one of the last things we write is also the abstract, right? The abstract is a quick synopsis of who, what, where, and how, the how of your program. This is actually one of the last things that we write. It could be called the executive summary, but it's basically an overview of the project, but it's actually it's usually the first thing you see, but the last thing we write it last. There's the project management section, which gives the qualifications and previous experience. So it shows the capacity of you being able to implement the work. And it outlines the individuals that will be implementing the project. So who's on your team, what qualifies them to do this specific work? Have they worked in this capacity before? Maybe projects that they've worked on in the past. Also, like, you might want to include their resumes or CVs as a part of it. And then the last section is the budget. And the budget is, it looks at the cost to implement the project. And for every budget, you also should have a budget justification. So the budget justification, it provides an absolute reason for the dollars requested, right? So if you're doing incentives for people that are taking your surveys, and you decided to give them t-shirts after the survey, and each t-shirt costs $5, and you have 100 people, right? Then you need $500 for that particular line item. You would do that for every single line item on your budget and kind of justify to the funder what you would be using the money for. Again, this is an overview, right, of a proposal, but our recommendation, this is how you get better, right? You get better by writing more. You get better by submitting more. I can't offer this. If anybody does something like this and they do a boilerplate language for their particular project as a part of your technical assistance, if you choose to do that, then I will read it and review it for you. You probably have to give me like 2 weeks or so to do it, but let me know that you're interested in that. And then I'll be happy to review it for you and give you feedback on it. On this last piece, just want people to think about whether or not you're grant ready or not, because sometimes people spend a whole bunch of time writing and they're not even ready to write yet, right? Because your organization is not really in the space to expend to be able to do grant writing. So here's a couple of questions, like, do you represent a government agency or educational institution or a nonprofit with a 501c3 status? If you don't have 501c3 status, do you have a fiscal sponsor? Yes or no, right? Because for most, not for about 90% of the grants that you'd be looking at, you probably have to have a 501c3 status with the IRS. And if you don't, right, that's in good standing, right? So not just, you know, not just do you have it, you know, but are you in good standing with the IRS as well? Is that fiscal sponsor, right? The fiscal sponsor could stand in place for the organization. But so for say for some of you, you might be working with a church, right? Maybe your organization is different, but you've paired with a church and the church is your fiscal sponsor. That's totally fine if they're in good standing. Has the organization been working in the community for a length of time? Usually a year, right? A year or two. If you're a brand new spanking organization, like you just been around for 3 months or 4 months, you know, we don't necessarily, I would recommend you spending more time building your donor database and starting to do work, right, in the community, even if it's small free work that you can offer, prior to trying to write larger grants and you haven't proven the capacity to do the work yet. Do you have a current vision and mission statement? Is your board of directors active, meaning that they are more than a paper board, meaning that they actually come together? There are meeting minutes that you can show where they are actually, you know, approving your financials and that type of thing. That's important, especially if you're going to be doing private foundation grants. It's important for all of them, but I find that the private foundation grants actually ask for it. They'll ask for minutes. They'll ask to meet your board. They'll ask for a site visit and come and want to meet people. So if you have not, you know, if you really haven't organized your board and you filed your 501c3, but your board ain't never got together, or y'all really don't do any work at all, you want to hold off on writing grants until you really activate them. Do you have an operating budget, right? And it doesn't have to be a big operating budget, but you should have, it shouldn't be zero, right? I don't recommend starting to write grants unless it's a seed grant and it says it's a seed grant. Now, sometimes you run across those are far and in between, but it does happen. But again, you should focus on getting some individual donors, maybe getting a corporate sponsor that's buying into your program, or maybe getting one donor that will, you know, write you a check for $5,000 or so, you know what I mean? Because they really believe in your vision. Rather than trying to write a grant and you have no operating budget. And if your budget is over $100,000, do you have a financial audit? That is very important also, especially as you're writing larger grants. And private foundations, again, they want to see your financial audit and they want to see that someone other than your board chair is doing your financial audit. So it usually has to be an independent audit. That's just information about me. There's my email address. I told you that we teach classes on grant writing as well. So reach out to me if you're interested in that. Or if, like I said, if you want to write that proposal and have me look at it, I'll be happy to help with that. Are there more questions, William, before I talk about presentations?
Not at this time, no.
Okie dokie. All right, so I want to go over a few things. You've seen this already, but I want to double back and do it again. I want to apologize because it appears at some point in time, so I've talked to a few of you, that we sent out something at some point in time that had the 11th and the 18th on it. I remember the 11th and the 18th being a part of our steering committee stuff, but the things that I presented to you on July 11th, I had to go back and check. Our July 11th dates were actually, what was presented was September 5th and September 12th. What it's been changed to is September 12th and September 19th, which are both Tuesdays, right? September 12th and September 19th. If for any reason that does not work for someone in your organization to present, because again, the whole team doesn't have to be present. We at least need one person to present for your team. If for any reason that doesn't work for your entire team, can you tell me ASAP? Please send me an email ASAP so that we can see what we can do. But we are aiming for presentations to be on September 12th and September 19th. We were also aiming for the presentations to be at the gathering spot. In trying to solidify everything with the gathering spot, I recently learned that they did not have us in the right room. And the room that they wanted us in does not accommodate all of us. And I don't want us to have to do what they made a suggestion, but I didn't like their suggestion at all. Because it doesn't get us all in the room together. And I would like us to all be in the room together. So that's why I reached out to our partner. Remember, I was saying I got on the phone today and reached out to our partner at the Satcher Leadership Institute with the Morehouse School of Medicine. And they're actually really, really excited to accommodate us. I will know by Friday. The time would be the same, 6. We should be done by about 8:30. Starting at 6 o'clock, done by 8:30. Food, we will provide food. I will send an email with specific details on parking and the room numbers and all that kind of stuff by Friday. So we're just solidifying a few things, but September 12th and September 19th are the days. If one of those days, I think a few of you emailed me and was like, I know I can't do this day, I have to do this day. Again, let me know. We can make those accommodations, no problem. I'll just, switch people out that don't have any issue. But we would like all of the teams to be present on both days so that you can see what your peers are doing. You can ask questions. We're also inviting our Interfaith Advisory Board members and partners to also come and see some of the great work that you all will be doing. So here is how we would like you to prepare for your presentations. Again, you should have seen this maybe 2 weeks ago, but nothing has changed about this part. But I just want to reiterate it again. So each organization will be responsible for presenting highlights on their overall project. Each team will be given 30 minutes. Presentations themselves should be 15 minutes in length. You should have a PowerPoint. We're thinking that everybody will have a PowerPoint presented. To present, we will have AV there, so you'll be able to use your PowerPoint. You can just bring it on a drive, or you'll be able to hook up your laptop computer directly to it. If possible, the other thing I might do is have you email them to me, but if I did that, I would do it on the day of, so don't worry about it, where you could just email me your presentation, and then we could be the ones to just use one laptop so that we don't have to change laptops 4 times in a night. You should present for 15 minutes and then leave 15 minutes for question, answer, and discussion. After you present, your team should then turn in the logic model, your slides, which we should have, your logic models and your work plan. And if there were any updates to your budget from what you turned into us with your application, then provide that as well. Because some of you plan for 12 months instead of 9 months. And so you might have to adjust your budget, right? So if that's the case, then just return that in with us. You can give us hard copies or email copies, either will be fine. Preparation for the presentations. These are the basic slides or the information that you should be presenting on. Your target population to be served, right? I can tell you now, you might get a question. This is something you might want to put in there, is how this target population is being recruited or how you're outreaching to them. If you don't talk about it, then we'll probably ask you that. You want clear goals, SMART objectives for the project, right? That SMART we went over 2 weeks ago: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time sensitive. Your program approach. If you're using any theories, then we would like to know. Decolonizing the Black body is a theory, right? So if you're going to be utilizing that theory, that is more than welcome. You can just kind of talk about that and how you'll be utilizing that. Activities and strategies that you will be using, any partners that you will be engaging as a part of your project. Discuss how you'll be addressing HIV stigma and inclusion, and LGBTQI inclusion in your project. That's also important to your approach, because that is, that's the gist of our subject matter. An overview of the evaluation plan for the project. Again, an overview, we don't need to see everything on the slide, but just an overview of how you'll be evaluating your project, and a timeline, right? The timeline is not the work plan. The work plan is an actual document that you'll turn in, right? The work plan has your objectives that are tied to, data collection, that are tied to people. We just want to know how you're using, this slide just needs to show us how you're utilizing the 9 months, right? What are specific milestones in that 9 months that you're going to be, accounting for. And a brief summation of the project team and their roles and responsibilities. So again, everybody doesn't have to be there on your date if they can't be there, but hopefully y'all will support your people. You can have more than one person talk. That is fine. We are just asking that whoever's going to be presenting, we want them to be present, right? We're not asking no virtual presenters, even though we will have a virtual option. So if you're not presenting and you can't be there, but you want to listen in on, how your team is doing and you want to give support that way, no problem. We will have a Zoom link for you to participate. And then a brief slide about project sustainability, which we talked about today, right? So how are you addressing community, financial, and organizational sustainability for the long-term development of your project? This is just a reminder of what the program logic model looks like. This is inside the Google, this and the work plan are inside the Google Classroom under session 4. So you can download it there, but this is what you're going to turn in and the work plan. So just a reminder, there are no sessions next week. You don't have to listen to our beautiful voices, but you will be seeing us on the 12th and the 19th in person. I will give you all of the details about that by Friday, but right now it's looking like we're going to be at Morehouse School of Medicine. We are planning to feed you. We're planning to be there from 6 to 8:30, and I will have all of the logistics down. We should not have to pay for parking because it's after hours, but I will have all of that information by Friday, and I will put it in an email as well as in a Google Classroom. The other thing that you should be receiving by the end of this week, if not tonight, is an evaluation on the capacity building section. It's just a brief, just give us some feedback on, things that you thought were useful, things that you didn't think were useful, be candid. We always would like to know what we can do better and what we did well. So please share that with us. Dr. Sarita is working on that. It should have a Survey Monkey for us probably tonight, but definitely before the end of the week. All right, for real now, I'm done. Any other questions? Did you send an example of the work plan? Yes, ma'am. Well, the example, no, I sent it wasn't filled out. Would you like me to fill it out? Like fill out a line? I could do that.
Yeah, like you did for the logic model.
Okay, yes, I can do that. So yeah, I sent oh no, so yeah, that's there, Lisa, just like for the logic model, an example of a template for the work plan is there.
Yeah, like you sent a template and then in your presentation you had examples, so you could see exactly what you were saying,
Okay, so I will do that. I don't have an example then. I just have a template. So I can put an example in there before Friday.
Okay, great.
Any other thoughts, questions, comments, concerns? I'm happy to say that we were able to talk to everybody. So we had one-on-ones with everybody, which is great. So I'm really looking forward to, hearing everybody's presentation. And if you are, I'm just thinking out loud. I think I might need to know, and maybe I'll just send a poll. I might need to know who's going to be there in person and who's going to be there virtually, just so that we can prepare for food and stuff like that. But I'll send that out. I'll probably just do a poll. I'll send out a poll.
Tyranny is asking, how should we reach out if we can't currently access the Google Classroom? Well, Tyranny, I would have made note because she sent me a comment already. So I'll just get with Omi to make sure that we have the correct email for you. Right, Omi? It's just a matter of having the correct email. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm thinking, so you didn't get, because if you didn't get the email I sent you and you didn't, that means you're not getting William's emails, because I replied to his email today. So if you're not getting any emails from us, then we have the wrong email and we need to make a change.
No,
I got you. Yes,
yeah,
it just
she-
that I didn't have access to the Google Classroom.
Say it one more time.
I get all the emails, but when I clicked on the link, it told me that I didn't have access to the Google Classroom.
Okay, can you email me back? And then let me check what I put in the Google Classroom. I thought that's my bad then. I thought if you had the link, then you could just get in. So maybe I need to input your name. Any other thoughts, closing comments, concerns?
Well, I'll just ask a question, just to get kickstarted, just to kickstart it, I should say. Social media is really big, and when you speak about sustainability and sharing information, that's a part of sustainability. So I was thinking something like YouTube, where it's permanent and forever. If you did a YouTube video that actually talked about the program and shared the results, could that be a part of sustainability?
Yeah, that could be a report. So, that could take the place of or we're talking about white papers or, reports that are online. A video is still a report. So, that could speak to sustainability as well, or how the project information lives on past the project. For sure.
Okay. And some of the programs have programs, they have discussion pods that they currently have as a part of their organization, but they're making it available to the Black Religious Roundtable. Would sustainability be that on these particular podcasts, maybe once or twice a year, that they speak about the program or HIV and AIDS in the community, or what sort of information could they share as a part of that platform that will count as sustainability?
Well, the podcast is going to be lifelong, right? Once they put it online, then that's an actual super sustainable project, because once they record the podcast and they put it online, then it can be accessed for as long as it's up there.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's a super sustainable project.
And then if anybody needs to get in contact with you or me, with, with grant writing, education, above and beyond Black Religious Roundtable, you offered your assistance before, and so that would lend your skill set is available above and beyond Black Religious Roundtable. Yeah.
Yes, I offered to read your, if you did a boilerplate language, then I would be more than happy to read it for you. Yes, and if you had other questions about grant writing, then you can also 678-749-4788. That's my contact information. That's my text me. If you call me, I probably will not answer the phone because I was telling somebody earlier, my schedule is a whole science, but if you text me, I can respond pretty fast. And if you email me, I'll respond as well.
Great.
All right, y'all. Well, we will upload this recording into the Google Classroom. I will make sure that all of you have access to the Google Classroom, so Tyranny, no worries. And if anybody else doesn't have access, please let us know as soon as possible. And we will look forward to seeing all of you in person on the 12th and again on the 19th. And then just to let you know, after the 19th, what you'll get is an agreement that you'll sign, a grant agreement. That grant agreement will go to ITC, and then it'll probably take a week or two for them to process that and get the checks out to you, but the check will be mailed to you. So we have to double check your they don't do direct deposits. Sorry, I tried. But it will be a check that will be mailed to you. So we have to double check on your grant agreement. You will verify your address. you'll need a grant, I'm sorry, you need a grant agreement and a W-9. So just be prepared to give those 2 documents. But I'll say that again, don't worry. You'll get that information again. All right, folks, that's all I got.
All right. Thank you all so much, and we'll be talking with you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good night.
Thanks so
Thank you.
much.
Sante Sana.
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Thank you.
Peace
Bye-bye.
and love.
Thank you very much.
Peace and love.
Hello.
Yep, we good?
Yeah, we're good. Now,
Stop recording.
here we go.